The various symbols of the Aztec religion. The Aztec religion is a very underrepresented religion in Mexico, even though it was at one point one of the most practiced religions in that part of the world. This religion was practiced throughout the whole Aztec Empire, which made up the large majority of Mexico's central region. My presentation will focus on the various symbols that the Aztec people have tied to their religion and their way of life. This religion is mostly known for its pyramids, rituals, and sacrificing events. Many symbols can be seen throughout this religion, which ties them all together to create a single culture. The creation of the universe started through a void in which the god Omesiwalt was created. It represented both opposites such as male and female, dark and light, good and evil. Through this god, four gods were born who represented the four corners. These gods created other gods, and throughout several destructions and creations of the earth, they finally created the earth we know today. The origin of the city of Tenochtitlan came to be because of a prophecy which stated that the Aztec people would find their home once they found an eagle perched on top of a nopal cactus with a snake in its mouth. Once they found that symbol, then they can start creating their city and building temples. Directions were important for the determination of where the pyramids would be built. They were placed specifically in the 5 directions: north, south, east, west, and center. This placement symbolizes the Aztec world as the center of the universe. Other symbols that are easily recognized are the symbols of the Aztec calendar. Overall, the Aztec calendar tells us a lot about how the Aztec people kept track of time and what was significant to them. The whole calendar is made up of 2 parts, in which one is the 365 solar day calendar and the other is a 260-day-long sacred calendar. Aztec writing also had ties with symbolism because of the many layers that were attached to one symbol. Some of these pictures depicted gods or just ordinary things such as animals. For example, a symbol would depict a certain animal, such as a jaguar, and would be a representation of the animal and of a deity. There are many different temples in the city of Tenochtitlan, which was at some point the capital of the Aztec civilization. The largest pyramid is a temple called the Templo Mayor and is believed to be the area where the Aztec people received the sign to start building their city. This temple is located at the center of the community of Tenochtitlan. The reason why this temple is so large is because it is supposed to meet the heavens and represent the center of the universe. This temple represents 2 Aztec gods called Huitzilopochtli and Tlaloc. Huitzilopochtli is the god of war, while Tlaloc is the god of rain and agriculture. These 2 aspects were very important in the Aztec religion, so they were therefore placed in the largest pyramid with separate temples at the very top. This was the site where the majority of the human sacrifices took place. The reason why the pyramids were large were because of who and what they represented. This temple is supposed to be the representation of the hills in which both of these gods were born. Temples were made grand to represent how much they admired and devoted their gods. Investments such as offerings, sacrifices, and decorations were vital to express their faithfulness. Pyramids were a representation of the gods themselves. They were mostly kept dark for sanctity and mysterious to symbolize how the gods were seen from the aspect of ordinary people. They were mostly given different offerings aside from blood in order to please them, and usually had ceremonial incense lit inside the temples. The Aztec people believed that by giving blood it would please the gods and therefore be rewarded. They believed that blood and flesh would nourish the gods, especially the sun god, so that he may rise the next day. The way that they would sacrifice a person is by laying them backwards on a slab and take out their beating heart. They would then throw the body down the steps of the temple. The reason behind human sacrifices are symbolic as well. The Aztecs believed that by sacrificing people, it kept the universe bound. They saw this act as holding life and death together. As everything else in their culture, it is a representation of the fragile balance of life. Almost everything in this culture has a connection to balance. For example, many of their myths have to do with birth and death. This balance can also be represented through ritual by what they gave as offerings and what they did during ceremonies. The symbolism behind these sacrifices was to fulfill a higher purpose. The Aztec people believed that they were elected by the sun god and therefore had to feed him in blood. They would also capture their enemies during war in order to use them for these rituals. This gesture was also political because it sent out a message to their enemies and their citizens about their elite powers. The different types of rituals that the Aztecs would practice would also be a representation of their social status. For example, the high priests would be at the top of the social order, so they performed rituals such as human sacrifices. People that held a lower status would be at the bottom of the temple in the plaza and give blood offerings of their own. Once the Spanish came, they interpreted as a sign of the gods. They saw Hernan Cortes as the god Quetzalcoatl, or the feathered serpent. The story of this god was that he once ruled a city but was cast out by magicians. This legend stated that he was going to return in the year of the feathered serpent and restore the great kingdom that he once ruled. When Hernan Cortes came to the city of Tenochtitlan, the Aztecs interpreted this as the return of the god because he came during the year of the feathered serpent. Quetzalcoatl represented a very knowledgeable and successful ruler, so it was understandable to see why they let him influence their culture so heavily. Unfortunately, this influence led to the demise of the Aztec Empire. Symbolism was an important part of the Aztec culture. It was used in their writing system to represent significant things such as gods and stories. The representation and use of pyramids had many deeper meanings as well. Overall, symbols had a large impact on their culture in order to interpret the world around them.